Hi, I'm Bart Rust with Forbes Breaking News, and joining me today is Congressman Doug LaMalfa, representing California's 1st District. And so today I'd like to talk with you about California's new minimum wage law that for fast food workers that took effect on Monday, April 1st. So jumping the wage from the statewide $16 an hour to the $20 an hour that fast food workers will now be receiving. And I guess my question for you is, what do you make of this? What do you make of this new law?
Well, I think it's pretty elitist for the governor and the state legislature to be setting wage levels like that, and they didn't really consult with the people that are going to have to be dealing with that. In that they've already been making moves to accommodate that. Their bottom line still has to be something that they think is going to be in the black, on the profit side, and so. The effects are as expected here, that there's going to be reduction in jobs, reduction in hours, and some of the businesses have just flat pulled up and closed. So so that means less jobs overall. It means less local economy from that, and so the legislators and Governor Newsom are going to see the effect, and we're going to have to remind them of it.
Gotcha. And so you've been hearing from constituents already that it's already impacting their bottom line?
Indeed. I mean, you're seeing that food prices are already increasing across the board. And so that's going to apply towards so-called fast food as well. And you're hearing more and more anecdotes of people paying, $18 for a normal meal, let's say, at what used to be termed a fast food restaurant. Yeah, people used to associate that with relative quickness and pretty economical for buying those meals and such, and now it's being priced out even beforehand on this, with the high cost of inflation of everything, the unnecessary cost of energy and everything that goes along with it, that makes things more hard to procure and produce. So this is the latest that's kind of finishing it off. A local pizza place just decided to pull the pin last week in my hometown here. And that kind of surprised me, but it is part of a chain. And I guess I can't say I'm surprised because they're anticipating. We've already heard layoffs in anticipation for, like pizza delivery drivers and other delivery and reduction of hours, more and more work being done by family, perhaps if it's a family-owned franchise. So you'll see other things happen. Maybe, since Governor Newsom saw that if you bake bread on site, like Panera Bread, which evidently he's received really good campaign contributions from some of those folks, that they have a, I guess, an exemption from that. So that's still being interpreted, but Newsom's all over the map on that. So it's really, it doesn't help.
Right.
And it just wasn't that long ago where there's a big push to have $15 an hour be the big drive for a living wage that they want to determine. They were stepped in over the wishes of businesses and to start establishing this higher and higher wage, and it's had an effect already. And what Newsom and Biden should be looking at is what they're doing to cause inflation, and not trying to somehow make it up on the back end by forcing employers to make it up out of their own pocket when it isn't economically feasible to pay somebody $20 an hour to, flip a hamburger.
Gotcha. Absolutely. We often see the rest of the country follow California in these sort of in some of these measures. Do you believe this will be a more widespread adoption, a different minimum wage for fast food workers or workers in different industries now that it's been rolled out in California?
Well, if the other corrupt states are smart about it and at least observe for a while what happens, maybe they won't. But you hit on a pretty good typical trend, is that California does it, then you can expect Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, a few like that to just jump right in and do it too. And some of the others up in the Northeast, because that seems to be what their political bent and what they think their constituency is. So it wouldn't surprise me. But if they're smart about it, they'll at least see what the effects are for a few months, and go down the list and count how many businesses have stopped, how many jobs have been reduced, hours reduced, and all that, and see what the real effects are. Because they're going to make the case California's more expensive to live in, and so maybe that's why they should hand out these raises. But this is part of what drives California to be the most expensive, is that kind of regulatory attitude on that, and energy and everything else. So I wouldn't be surprised, because especially the Biden administration wants to emulate the difficulty we're having here, the failures we're having here. I mean, California's all focused on benefits for illegal immigrants and still building this dumb high-speed rail project, when we should be building water storage, as we contemplate a new year in agriculture in California. And they can't make the promises here in California of the water rights, delivering, somewhere in the Central Valley, there's several districts that are only going to get 30 to 35% of their normal allocation.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you supposed to grow crops? How are you supposed to feed the country when they have that going on? So they're barking up the wrong tree on which problems to solve around here. It's really, it isn't a problem. It needs to be a decision made by employee as to what a wage is, because at $20 an hour starting Monday this week, that's going to tilt a lot of wages for a lot of other people that are going to look at that and say, well, I can get 20 over here. Why should I work in an oil change place and get my hands dirty for 16 or 17 or 18, right, or maybe even the same amount?
Right.
It's going to have a tilting effect on all the other wages.
Absolutely. So I guess, do you think there should be a minimum wage then, or a federally set minimum wage, or do you think that should just be left to employers and employees?
Well, that's a kind of where do you look at it from a libertarian standpoint? So small L, is government really have an idea of what a wage should be? Does it have an idea of what a business should be looking at, or is it a relationship between employer and employee? I suppose it's become the fiber of work these days, but arbitrarily raising it on, especially a narrow group like this. You're a fast food enterprise of naturally has to have at least I believe it's 60 in a chain to be affected by this. So if you're a little smaller than that, you're off the hook, or if you're a mom and pop. And I'm glad there's folks that are off the hook on this,
mm-hmm,
but it's very arbitrary, like a lot of things. The climate change monkey business they're doing always has these arbitrary dates.
Switching topics a little bit here, you sort of mentioned climate change and federal regulations on water and stuff, and so I'd like to switch now to sort of to talk about federal wildfire policy, and sort of
Sure.
You gained a little bit of national attention when you very patiently waited to the end of the State of the Union and hung around and got some one-on-one time with the president. And so my question on wildfire policy is how responsive has the Biden administration been to your requests and your district's needs?
Well, his team did follow up with part of my staff on that. We hope to have ongoing, additional conversation where I can, go sit down with some of his White House staff and, maybe himself, but he's a busy guy, and talk about how we're going to advance the policy of having U.S. Forest Service and the other land managers, BLM and others, do much more to manage our federal lands in a way that's going to make them more fire safe, more productive, while still, maintaining the integrity of what the original intent was. And if you were to drive through a forested area, you would see that the Forest Service signs would say, XY National Forest, of land of many uses. It isn't just to be, as defined these days, preserved, which means nobody can have access for, in some cases, wilderness areas for hunting, fishing, camping, off-roading, as well as the type of management you need for having a forest be healthy long-term. And that means, harvest, means thinning, it means being able to put access roads in there respectfully, but you need these things.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can do these things, manage the land, as well as have the ability to fight fire if you need to.
Yeah.
And so a managed forest is one that's going to be much less prone to fire or at least the inability to put a fire out. You're going to have lightning strikes, you're going to have accidents, you're going to have whatever that's going to cause fires on occasion, just a matter of how far and wide and devastating they have to be. A thinned out forest is much easier to put fire out. It doesn't become its own self-perpetuating inferno when you have that. And that's a great tool for firefighters to have. And as we've suffered with 1,000,000-acre forest fires in my own district a couple of years ago, 1,000,000 acres, one fire, they had a devil of a time trying to catch up and get ahead of that, and set parameters there for the fire to fight up against. It was they tried to set bat fires, they tried to set cut areas there where they were thinning out, or even cutting a pretty wide area to hopefully stop the fire. But it was so strongly driven by wind and so much dry fuel, it made it really difficult. It kept leapfrogging farther and farther up, where it was many, many miles from where it first started, and at least 70, 60, 70, 80 miles from one end to the other of the fire, if you really measured it out. And so Forest Service is not moving at a rate that is ever going to get us there. Forest Service has under its purview 193 million acres, and when they're treating 1 or 2 million acres per year, and treating includes the fires sometimes, which nobody intentionally put in place or set, we'll never catch up. And so they need help. They need the private sector that has been out there for years being part of the solution, producing the wood and paper products that we need. And so that was part of my message with the president, is that if not quick action is taken, we're going to actually lose the private sector, which is the important partner in this. Because they can't make a living, and the Forest Service is only handing out a few acres at a time to contract with them to harvest and manage on their behalf. Because Forest Service doesn't have enough time, money, personnel, or I'd say gumption, to go out and do the number of acres that's required if we're ever going to catch up.
Understood. I think it's safe to say you're disappointed in the response from the federal government. Has Governor Newsom?
I'm not gonna put a negative on the president. We are a conversation. They did. The president said, hey, let's meet, get a meeting lined up, and all that. Had his staffer help us. But my disappointment lies in the long-term inactivity of the federal government to do anything about this in a real way, or to take an urgency on that. I hear the bureaucrats talk, and we got to do this, we got to study that. Like, guys, the house is figuratively on fire here, and you're still contemplating bureaucratic maneuvers instead of at least tell me you're aggressively out there doing that. At least pretend to do it. But there isn't. And the people that we had in a recent field hearing on that, they could tell, they could see, like, there doesn't seem to be any urgency with these folks. So you got the wrong people in charge at that point.
Understood. In the House, I think it might be, I would hazard to say it was a chaotic appropriations and funding process. Were you able to achieve any of what you wanted to get in terms of wildfire policy or recovery efforts in this latest round of funding?
Well, keeping the lights on is basically what you accomplish in these spending bills, and we haven't advanced a lot of great new policy on that. So there's little wins here and there within the military spending on that, but it's not been a really great situation. And guys and gals on our own side are bickering amongst the Republicans and Republicans, and that's not a really great look across the board for the rest of the country, nor for just the business of the House getting work done, whether forget the partisan side of it. So I'm I guess disappointed the way our process has been working lately too. We've been bickering ever since, like, Speaker McCarthy came in January of 23, and that took 15 votes, and then next thing you know, 9 months later they're throwing them out, and we're back in turmoil. And so now Mike Johnson's trying to pick up the pieces here, and now they're attacking him. So how smart does that all look? It's rather discouraging because the House Republicans are really the last line of defense between a whole lot of spending and a whole lot of bad other Democrat policies that they would have been advancing it rampantly had they had the majority along with the Senate and the White House. So I guess that's not a positive way to look at things, but we've been able to put the brakes on a lot of really bad policy, in my opinion, or in a Republican's opinion, that would have gone on under a continuation under a Democrat majority in the House. And they'll be right back at it should they somehow win one in this next election. It'll be much more vast amounts of irresponsible spending. We're still spending at a rate that is not matching our income. And, my colleagues are speaking frequently about this on the floor with detailed charts and showing the numbers, and we're not in a good way. And the Dems, they don't mind just dreaming up $1 trillion new programs, new expenditures right in the middle of a budget year. And there's no way this is being paid for. This is borrowed money. It's borrowed time. And if the House Republicans aren't there to at least put the brakes on things a little bit, it'd be that much worse. So so these spending bills, they're a compromise, and no, they don't come close to balancing. We're always trying to advance within our conference or some of our subgroups a balanced budget over a period of time, and that it moves in the right direction without having too darn much pain, as it would be termed, on any particular group or priority. But we're not moving the ball quickly enough with the way that the debt is building. And if interest rates were to continue to creep up a little bit, it will devour our discretionary portion of our budget, which is becoming a narrower part of our overall budget anyway, with the mandatory spending and interest service is, debt service is a bigger number when you look at the charts, and it's not good.
Yeah. I might leave you with this one last one. You and Greg Stanton, a Democrat, have been working on HR 7070 to improve wildfire recovery. How's that going? Do you have any updates on that for its process?
Oh, it's difficult to get floor time for bills around here these days. There's so much turmoil and such. So it's still in a committee process right now, and we hope to have that keep moving in committee. And then if it can get to the floor, if it becomes a priority. To take the bill number 7070, that means over 7,000 bills have been introduced in the so far into this 2-year period of a session. We're about a little over, not quite a year and a half in, and there's already 7,000 bills introduced. So I hope we can make it a priority. We have other bills already pending in tax legislation, trying to help our current wildfire victims we have up here in Paradise, California, to not have to be taxed on the damages they're awarded from the utility when it lost a lawsuit there. And so that's costing people tens of thousands of dollars, because the backfill, the dollars that they were got awarded for whatever their insurance, if they had insurance or not good enough insurance, the utility money was going to help them rebuild their lives, and the IRS believed that's a taxable event. And so we're trying to change that. So a bill is part of a bigger tax package that's sitting over in the Senate. We want to get that done right away, because that's very important, and as well as a lot of other positive things from tax structure that's in that bill. So we need Senator Schumer to get that moving over there, and Republicans to support it and get that thing out, because we're in April now, and just that little sub piece is important for people who are going to be paying their taxes on April 15th. That they have to decide, we got to pay tens of thousands more for the idea that IRS is going to tax us on these damages, or is the government is the legislature going to move quickly enough in Congress to head that off, so they don't have to do that on April 15th. So that's important. There's a lot of important bills that are getting caught in the limbo of the infighting here. That it's really disappointing as well, because people expect us to get a job done, and we're just living hand to mouth, and Congress is trying to keep the place from shutting down because we can't agree that this amount of deficit spending is better than this amount of deficit spending. So it's rough going lately.
All right. Well, Congressman LaMalfa, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you to folks at Forbes for having me. Appreciate it.